Welcome back. The identification of ISIS terrorist Jihadi John sparking a barrage of finger-pointing in the UK. Critics wondering how this young London college graduate, who is reportedly on MI5's watch list, was able to evade capture and slip into Syria. Congressman William Hurd is a former CIA undercover operative. He's on the House Homeland Security Committee's task force on combating terrorist and foreign fighter travel. Sir, good to have you on the program. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So before we look at how he was able to evade the government, let me ask you about identifying this individual to be Jihadist John. What does that do for the U.S. and allies in its war against the terrorists?
Well, it gives us someone to focus on. It gives us the ability to look at his known associates, previous travel. It gives us a target to go after. So identifying him is a good thing. And this is one of the most difficult parts of chasing terrorists. I spent 9 years as an undercover officer in the CIA. I was the guy in the back alleys at 4 o'clock in the morning collecting intelligence. And when you have an identity of someone, that allows you to start building out a package around them to bring them to justice and their associates to justice.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary to hear people who knew him and grew up with him and saw him in school and what they think of him today. How did he evade everyone and slip into Syria?
Well, when you have so many people that you're watching, you look at the number of folks that of interest to the MI5. If this person hadn't committed any crimes to that point, it's hard to devote the resources to him. But this is an example of how scary ISIS is and the clear and present danger they are to the United States. Their ability to get their message out and to influence people is unparalleled. When I was in Afghanistan and Pakistan, chasing groups like the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, to get their message out, they would do something called night letters. They would really write letters and leave it on people's doorsteps. And they were able to hit 100 people, maybe a couple of hundred people in an evening. But what ISIS is doing and how they're managing social media to get their message out to tens of millions of people, you haven't seen that from a terrorist organization heretofore.
Yeah, and how is it that they are so experienced at this? I mean, put this group in perspective for us relative to what you've seen in the past.
Well, they're sophisticated. Most of them are digital natives, and so they've been growing up and learning these tools since they were born, and they have very sophisticated and smart folks behind them. A lot of times we want to look at that these terrorists that we're facing across the world are guys that are living in caves, excuse me, and are really backwards. But it's the exact opposite. They read more about the U.S. They know more about what we're doing and how we're trying to counter them, and they're a sophisticated threat that we need to make sure that we treat them that way.
They've also got high-tech equipment, which of course they stole from the Iraqi army, which of course was left by the Americans when the Americans pulled out of Iraq. Let me ask you what the U.S. should be doing at this point. What is the most effective way to degrade and destroy ISIS?
I think the best model we can look at is think Afghanistan, December of 2001. When we went into Afghanistan after 9/11 and killed about a quarter of Al-Qaeda leadership, pushed all the Taliban out of the country, the fall of Kandahar, which is a city in southern Afghanistan, there were less than 500 Americans in Afghanistan, 100 CIA, 400 Special Forces. And they were able to do what they did because they partnered with local groups, and we can do that in Syria and Iraq. We should be working with our Arab allies in the region. ISIS is a threat not only to us, to the Israelis, they're a threat to the Jordanians, to the Egyptians, to the Emiratis, to the Turks. Last week, the president of Egypt was talking about having an Arab group come together to fight these. So we need to continue airstrikes, fixed and unmanned aerial vehicles, and we need to be working with our local partners and have them be our boots on the ground in order to destroy this threat.
All right, we'll be watching. Congressman, good to have you on the program today. Thanks very much.
Thank you.